Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our weekly podcast. It's so lovely to have you here today, and I'm super excited for who we've got. I'm Sam.
And I'm Dave.
And that is Janine Horn. Janine is an independent financial advisor, and today she's going to be schooling us on financial management, as well as a few tidbits regarding entrepreneurs. I think are going to find this very, very valuable. So yeah, welcome to the podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, comment. We love engagement with the audience, and yeah, I hope you're going to enjoy the podcast. Dave, how's your week been?
The week has been great, and we're going to just discuss quickly some topics before we go to a beautiful Janine. And we had our much anticipated cabinet reshuffle, which ended up being damn squib because we didn't have we still got the strange people in portfolios.
Strange people, Dave?
Yeah, like it baffles my mind that we've got a communist that's running our mining affairs in our country.
Crazy.
A complete communist that hasn't got a clue. And we've still got our esteemed Minister of Police, Shelley.
How's he still around?
That he's still around with our...
Him and his hats must go.
Yeah, exactly. It's our murder rate is going through the roof. And crime's going
GBV,
through the roof.
all of that. Yeah.
And but he's still in place. But what was interesting that he brought Dlamini Zuma into his cabinet at the Union Building. So he's keeping his enemies very close to himself. Thank God he fired Sisulu because she was just, really.
Yeah.
How can you criticize your boss and still have a job? Anyway, I'm sure she's gone to the CCMA.
I'm sure too, yeah.
And then we got two more deputy ministers, which has increased the budget for our cabinet by
what do you think
78 million.
the purpose of that is?
Politics.
In case the one's off sick or something?
Purely politics. It's politics.
South Africa.
It's politics. So, but I think, and we got a new Minister of Electricity. And I think the guy's quite a good guy. He's got an interesting track record, but I think it's a good choice.
Are we hoping for a miracle?
I don't know what he has to put many rabbits out of his hat.
Is there one such miracle?
I don't know.
Maybe he comes with his own mafia. You never know.
Yeah.
No, I think he's a good guy. I don't think he's a bad guy.
Everybody deserves a fair shot.
True.
He's got a big mess to clean up, though.
And I think South Africans need hope.
Yeah, and I don't know how he's going to handle the four criminal syndicates that are running ESCOM. That we'll see how that's going on. And the other news, obviously, which we're going to refer back to you, Janine, just now, is the budget speech. Yes. Again, what I took from it, which is quite positive, is the fact that we are slowly moving from old ideologies to more pragmatic solutions.
Totally, on the ground.
So for instance, the fact that the ANC have destroyed every single institution in our country, I think now our president is saying, okay, listen, let's just give private sector a chance to go with Transnet, to privatize it. Same with electricity, where they divided into three entities, and now they're asking for IPPs to come on board, which is a good situation. And also talking about the ports, bringing partners in. Obviously, on cue, the unions jump up and down because they got the...
Right on time.
No, somebody forgot to tell them that communism failed. So I don't know, the Berlin Wall fell in 1984, it's failed. But yet they hold on to the thing.
You only know what you know. That's
exactly.
the hard part.
Someone should tell them.
You only hold on to you know.
Don't you think so, Janine? Someone should say to them, listen, it's not work.
Do you think they're going to listen? Come now.
Because they've got their own agendas, So those are the current affairs that's going on at the moment. And the Reuters massive outlet is now causing...
What's the latest? I've been too busy.
the latest is that ANC is saying to him he must report it to the authorities. Meantime, he's reported to the chief of police,
he's done that.
to the MPA. He's reported
And
to
they've
everybody,
done
and they're still
nothing.
saying, they're still saying that he has to report it. But he has.
And there was something about providing the evidence on the 7th, else they were going to take legal action against him.
Which is just talking,
And the
because he's
7th
already,
has come and
That's
gone.
just
he's
talk.
already provided the evidence a long time ago. And the rumblings, I think I said last time, it's that the high-ranking ANC official that you talked about is David Mabuza. Okay, so that could be quite a scandal.
I don't know if are we in for more shock. We've had so
No,
much.
we say punch drunk. We say
desensitized.
punch
I mean,
drunk.
like we've got the clothing, we've got the gap on already. We're so used to it.
Yeah,
you
we are
know?
totally desensitized and traumatized as a
It's
nation.
just, but I think we're beyond the trauma now. We just look at it and we just laugh, because I think it's just ridiculous what's going on.
There is a notion that it's global. We're not the only country. You know, when I speak to people that are ever patriotic, there's a sentiment that it's chaos globally.
Well, I make no mistake. I'm very patriotic. I love my country, and I think that 2024 is going to be a watershed situation for our country.
True.
And I'm very optimistic. Anyway, now moving along
Yes.
on this situation. So, Janine, our podcast is about entrepreneurs and how they started a journey and what made them become entrepreneurs. Could you share with us how you started with your journey?
How long have we got?
How long have you
Well,
got?
according to you, an hour.
Oh my! So I was telling the story fondly to somebody this week how I started studying science, BSc, biology, physiology, chemistry, physics, geography, in the attempt to become a marine biologist or biology teacher.
Okay.
And so I always loved teaching, from youth work, from church work to any youth
It's in your
participation.
DNA.
It was really. And if I look at what I do today is teaching, you know, to some extent. And so that developed very fast into an underwriting interview that came and became a business consultant placement. Okay. And that's when I really fell in love with the idea of financial planning. Okay. You know, financial planning is always the thing about we want to do product sales. Somebody just wants to sell you a life policy, and then you have 5,000 funeral policies being sold to you, and so you stay away from that. And the idea for me was really that we can change people's lives with proper planning. Our lives can change with proper planning.
For sure.
And of course, my parents went, you studied all of that only to become an insurance person.
Yeah.
Is that the perception?
Absolutely.
Yeah, an insurance person. That's it. That's the label you get.
You know, and you go and walk and knock on doors to go and find customers. So you said,
where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Mitchell's Plain. Lived with my granny. Both grannies, actually, Bridgetown and Welcome Estate, because there weren't schools in Mitchell's Plain yet. And my parents were nurses, so it was the 5 a.m. train out in the morning and the 7 p.m. at night. So I went to preschool on the hospital grounds.
Really?
Oh, wow.
And of course, then when Sub A came, there was nothing.
So that's quite a different environment for a young child to kind of grow up a little faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a creche. We had lovely playtime, but it was also just strange. You know, you're leaving at the crack of dawn as this little person.
Yeah.
You just go with the flow. You just do what's being, you follow the trail that's being set out for you. So when they moved to Mitchell's Plain, I then traveled in and out. And after sleeping at Granny's for primary school. And then high school, I did the big girl thing and did the golden arrow thing and onto the bus. And, you know, you would walk through Mitchell's Plain to try and avoid all the persons that, you know, whistleblow constantly, which I think is still a thing. You know, that notion of, oh gosh, all eyes on me. Anyway, so fun times, absolutely.
Yeah. So after the insurance label was put on you, how did you kind of move out of that space?
Well, it's adopting the policy of also being first generation entrepreneur. The pressure's on.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
The pressure's on. So also,
versus a safe job as a teacher or a nurse.
And also in fact, both sides of the family, I was the first grandchild that then went to uni, you know.
Okay.
So flunked chemistry 3 times. And I was, okay, I cannot do this. I ain't paying this. And as I said, I went for an underwriting position, just fell in love with the industry. And financial planning for me was more than insurance. It was a way that you could structure people's lives and families' livelihood, because we all depend on each other in the family. You know, you, mom and dad, and the two of us as kids, something happens to dad, all of us are affected, and vice versa, right? And then again, us people of color must don't have a will. So that whole concept of estate planning was foreign. It was the white man stuff, hey, Dave?
Yeah,
it
was a privilege.
Don't put me on the spot,
It was almost like a privilege to have a will and a planner.
Totally.
But tell me, did you when you started out, did you start with a company? Did you work under a company, or did you work independent from the outside?
Yes, no, with a company. So I schooled in corporate.
Oh, you were in corporate,
yeah, so there was a medical aid firm that had gone from closed market to open market called SpectrumEd. So I spent a lot of time with them.
Okay.
And then moved on to Discovery. And then Momentum, so internal corporate as broker consulting. So when we call broker consultants, BDM, business development, you try and consult and go and get business at independent IFAs.
Yes.
And so all of us broker consultants would knock on your door and sell our products to you, and you'd go, okay, so this one is better at that type of benefit, and the other at a different benefit. So really it was the technical side where I schooled my teeth in the industry, and that for me was the important bit, because I could actually get the inner workings of what it looks like. You know?
That's interesting, because I also come from primarily a corporate background, and I always feel like I did my time in the trenches in corporate. And what I took with me when I became an entrepreneur, I don't think I would have been as polished and as organized.
Exactly.
There's a lot that you can take out of that,
100%
that space.
agree. Totally agree.
At what was your decisive moment when you said, okay, now I'm tired of corporate, and now I'm going to do this on my own? When was that?
Very uncanny, which I'll allude to that a little bit later. But I had one of my key accounts that had a bad accident, and she is about 30 years older, 25, 30 years older than me. And she said, I want to sell, and I'm going to buy. Don't know how, but I'm going to buy.
Okay.
Because it was about owning an asset and creating wealth and being an entrepreneur. I was tired of corporate. You know, you'd get one account, and tomorrow you not the flavor of the month again.
You're never good enough.
Totally. And so that you have a few months of great and a few months of bad. So, you know, you were really being dictated to most of the time.
Sure.
And so the love of industry, the technical knowledge, and I bought into a practice.
Okay.
And we
you got financed to buy into a practice.
Absolutely. Okay. Paid a deposit, took very little money to pay off my shares within 12 months. And we were this dynamic duo in the industry, because firstly, females are scarce. Yeah. And secondly, females of color are scarce. And then partnerships are scarce as females. That too, and we were two females. White Afrikaans, and myself, of course, brown-faced. So that was, we got a lot of attention in the industry, and we were called duet financial planning. So it was very apt, you know, the whole double duo stuff.
And is this scholarship still going?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And then with her getting older, and we had a lot of commission changes in industry. So as soon as there are legislation and commission changes, your income changes.
Okay.
And it was also around the 2008 bubble.
Oh, yeah.
So
the market crash.
Many properties, all of us, etc., and needing really to consolidate. So we decided to sell. So we sold our business. Okay. And Soleta went off and retired. And I joined the firm that we sold to, which was a wealth management firm in Claremont. They're still around. Yeah. And so I was a wealth manager with him for a while, really specializing in risk compared to the other guys that were really investment specialists. And so it was cool. It was great. But I wanted to be my own boss again, you know. So I was back listening to
you cannot go back.
I was back listening to the fruit cooker doer, you know.
No, for sure.
And thought, no, something has to give. And then my baby brother-in-law passed away. Okay. And I remember phoning in the Monday to say, we've had this trauma in our family. You know, I won't be at the Monday morning meeting. And I remember the comment was something like, so was it a husband or wife? Was it a husband or a child or parent?
Oh, gosh.
What?
So that stimulated one notion, and that's the notion that I live by. We have one life. We have one life, and you have to take what you can as best as possible.
Absolutely.
And I remember just after we had the funeral, etc., went back to the office, no sympathy card, no nothing.
Wow.
Strange that this young man died.
Nothing.
You know, lots of stirring, lots of kind of commentary. And eventually just thought, it's time. That if that's not the trigger, what
Yes.
will be the trigger?
Yeah.
Sure.
So Momentum Financial Planning had started their own independent contract. And so what that means is that you operate under their license for financial planning, but you're independent
Yes.
from in terms of not being employed, not in-house, not corporate,
United House, yeah.
and not an agent. That's
No,
the word I'm looking
yeah.
for. And
That's
that has
around
been-
about the time you
yes,
and I met.
Absolutely.
I remember Momentum.
Absolutely, yeah.
And,
We were still looking at the whole Black Broker Forum or something.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, I remember.
And that's the bit that really changed things for me, you know, where you could see, firstly, how far it could take you. And when you impact people's lives, I have now about 500 clients.
Wow.
And it's a combination of comprehensive financial planning.
Yes.
you know.
So, we discussed this in depth about being an entrepreneur, etc. Did you have a good support structure around you that when you made a decision, now you're going to leave corporate
No,
again?
I needed me, myself, and I.
me, myself, and I. Okay.
My hubby's a darling, and so he's really they hold me, my foundation, my hubby and kids.
Yeah.
But a lot of the learning was me. So I was constantly learning, constantly doing courses, constantly studying.
Did you have mentors that you
At
referred
that
to?
time, no. But it was a lot of industry mentors. So I started with really close relationships with the seniors in the industry that I respected. And I would bounce things off. And we had a great management and training team. Pre-COVID, everything was intimate. So there were
Yes.
lots of meetings, lots of
Yeah.
events, lots of information sharing, and I just wanted to be a sponge. And at some point, I was really thinking, how do I grow this?
Yeah.
You know, I get very quickly bored. Like,
Okay.
I cannot
Like
do
a normal
the-
entrepreneur.
I
need
cannot
to
do
keep
the
moving.
same thing.
Bored, absolutely.
It's a crazy thing.
you have to keep
No.
moving.
You either
That's
change
the
your
thing.
shoe cupboard or every year,
No,
or you
but-
change your bedding every day. But
But it's a natural thing.
Absolutely,
You know,
It's a restlessness,
I've
like-
been an entrepreneur now for 36 years,
Yes.
and I still get restless.
Yeah.
I had an exco meeting this week, and we came up with an innovative way of creating more
Nice.
partnerships.
Nice.
But that's the essence of entrepreneur.
I
You're
think-
continuously
Totally.
coming
Yeah.
up
Totally.
with innovation,
absolutely.
and must be
Otherwise,
the
you're
same
just
with
doing
you.
a side hustle.
Exactly.
That's a
exactly.
big difference. You
That's
know?
true. And I think because your brain is wired as an entrepreneur in a certain way, you are always going to bring that to the table.
Yes.
Something new, something
Totally.
fresh.
Yes.
Yes, there's going to be like hectic risk involved, but like you find a way to persuade your partners.
Yes,
You're
yes,
gonna
totally.
just
So
carry on.
your husband's obviously fully on board with your.
Oh, totally. So he's
Okay.
also an entrepreneur. He started out with his dad as a business, and they then split, and he just went on his own, and he's
Okay.
got a couple of businesses that he does. I do most of the entrepreneurship, real business work in the family.
Okay.
And I smile thinking that he was available for both my kids while I was doing the 12-hour days
That's
work.
a huge blessing.
That
And
is
that
a-
was so beautiful.
But how important is that? It's so
Beautiful.
important. We can't overemphasize that if your partner is not on board with your activities and going out and actually building a business,
yeah.
it's so very difficult to actually
Totally. And we
achieve
can't
that
have
goal.
2 people working 12-hour days.
You
know,
can't have
because
that.
then you don't have the beautiful relationships that you have with your kids now that they're adults. Because it really is about knitting.
Yeah.
It really is about
True.
Yeah, so when you started out, your husband decided, okay, you'll like take the kids to school and do
his contract is with a morning media publication. So he does the morning run, 4 a.m. to 7, 8 a.m.
Okay.
And then he would take Keith to school, or he would fetch Chelsea. And so it was always that he had this half day
Yeah.
of either working early or working late
Yeah.
at
Okay.
night. And then there was a space for the kids. And that for me made such a massive difference.
That's
so he was always
huge.
around at sports, at
Would
the
you
sports
say he's
training.
your biggest cheerleader? Because that's really what your partner needs to be.
True,
eh?
absolutely.
Yeah.
That is, you can't overemphasize how important it is to have I know from practical experience how it is so important to have a partner along your side that's fully on board and backing you, not financially, but from a emotional perspective. Because if you don't have that, it just makes life difficult. Because being an entrepreneur is already difficult. Okay, so if you go home as an entrepreneur and you've got your partner Hana in your ear, okay, it just makes it more difficult.
And I think it's discussing the risk. And when I do financial literacy, which we'll obviously get to a little bit later, I often talk about how do we have conversations. Now think about your household and your household. What type of conversations did we have? Did we talk money? Did we talk entrepreneurship? I remember my dad saying to me, "Are you okay with working most of the time and bringing more of the bacon?" And I was like, why not?
Why not?
Yes. Why not? And so there is that perception as well. Breadwinner must be a male, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
Secondly, couples don't talk. Thirdly, there's always a risk. There's a risk with entrepreneurship. So once you weigh in on the risk and as a partnership, you go, okay, this is what I can do, this is what I can pull off. And I know myself well enough to know that I will pull it off. Obviously, you have the cheerleader. But when it goes awry is really when the other partner is slacking off, is not fulfilling the hours of hustling.
Because then the pressure comes onto the other one.
Absolutely.
So in the business that you're in, you're obviously passionate about making a difference in people's lives, right? And making money is a secondary situation.
Comes with the territory.
Okay, but it's not your driver. Yes, it's not your motivation. Motivation is because you mentioned earlier you want to impact people's lives. Tell me how you impact people's lives.
So as a second chapter, I then discovered a love for financial literacy, and so it really is about understanding how money works and understanding your behavior and your patterns and where they come from and how that impacts the relationship now as an adult. I remember from early on, I had a thing with shoes. And my word, if I look back on my life, and here's the bit where I was saying I'll allude to later, I've broken 2 ankles in 2 separate
How did you do that?
Let's not go
because
there.
Of your shoes? What?
Let's not go there. They were accidents, freak accidents, but they were accidents nonetheless.
Okay.
And I was sober. I wasn't.
I wasn't
not
tequila.
Inebriated.
It wasn't Jose Cuervo
there were
calling you.
3 gin and tonics.
Okay.
And so I remember at UWC taking the train, and we'd run out of train fare. I know I had one ride on, but couldn't find the ticket. Raced out the house, and I had to jump the line. And then I sprained my ankle.
Oh, wow.
And I gave a speech for one of the Women's Day events. And there was a theme that we needed to come up with. And I said, my theme was dancing in my head and singing in my heart. And I alluded to the fact that strange how broken bones or fractures or feet, because this partnership that I bought into, she had broken legs.
Yeah.
I had the incidences, and so it's like, okay, universe, what are you saying here?
What's with the
what
bones?
are you saying? Come now. And stability, foundation, feet. And I took that on and I said, okay, what stability? What foundation do I need to build onto? And it was the bit about impacting people's lives. Okay. So I do financial literacy coaching. I have a financial dating program.
Financial dating?
Say what?
What do you mean? Okay, now that's very interesting. What is financial dating?
Pause.
So think about what you shared earlier with me.
Okay, yes.
Your practical personal example.
Yes.
So imagine that you are now speed dating that very person where it went wrong.
Yeah.
And in the speed dating, you're not just speed dating to see the chemistry and, if you can get the vibe on. You're speed dating to say, what is your money love language? How did you grow up? Well, how did you behave? How did your family behave around money? What is your goal and desires? And I could go, I want 30 pairs of shoes because I never had shoes. True story, hashtag. Yeah. Never had shoes. And so once I earn my money, I'm going to make sure I have shoes, right?
That's going to be my thing.
And then you break bones and you have to sell all the high heel shoes. But moving on. And so you go, I'm a saver, Janine. I want to save. I want to buy 3 properties. I want to live frugally. I don't want a flash life. I don't want to change curtains every December like every other colored household. I don't want to paint the house. I just want to live low-key.
Okay.
and I'm extravagant, and I want show, and I want.
It's not quite a match then.
So think about the dynamic. Think about the dynamic with you being an entrepreneur, and I'm going, this month it was 200,000, next month is 2,000.
Yeah.
It's that rift that money creates and causes later in the relationship and results in divorce.
So that gets sorted out up front. Is that what you're saying?
That's quite deep.
So what you
and
do? You fill in
interesting.
how does that? You fill in like an application form saying like a balance sheet?
Because
How does that actually
David-
Think about the profile that you create on a Bumble.
Really,
or
but it's
Tinder, right?
financially orientated.
Absolutely.
But isn't that
So,
gold digger?
So you're going to find that
alert?
person. You're going to find
So
that person.
the
Absolutely.
gold diggers?
You're going to, because now there's a money conversation. So obviously I'm not saying at the first date.
Yeah.
I'm saying when you say, okay, this looks like, it could move into a cohabiting relationship.
Yeah.
This moves like,
something
looks like
serious.
we're going to share the bill along
Yeah.
the line with the many evenings out. We're booking weekends away. Who's paying? What's the
Yeah.
expectation? Who'll buy the food?
Yeah, let's talk about this. Yeah.
That is very, very interesting. I'm going to have a look. What's the site called?
So I'm trying to go live, do it online, digitally,
Yeah.
where you buy a program,
Okay.
and there's a couple of card games that you as a couple play,
Okay.
and so I'm busy recording the content now. But
So
I've
it's a
launched it
matching
in the-
platform at the
Totally.
essence of it.
And how many people? Sorry, I'm intrigued. How many people
Me
are
too.
involved in this?
So
currently?
I've just launched Feb.
You just
and,
launched it?
Yeah,
Yeah?
it's in the month of love.
So we'll be subscribing.
Yes.
So how many people on this?
So I'm aiming to get a pilot of 10 couples where we want to showcase the dynamics and build the storylines around that. And that will be the foundation of which the program will be.
And the prototype. I love
So
that.
interesting.
Furthermore, I mean, think of it. We go for counseling, marriage counseling
No,
with the
hoekom nie
priest and the
geld nie?
imam and the
Yeah.
whatever before
Yeah.
marriage.
Why
and,
not money?
and we meet the families and, we
Yes.
don't know what that family's money story
Yeah.
is. We don't
Yes.
know whether the partner I'm marrying is actually blacklisted. Can he get credit?
Come on.
Is he credit
Now you're talking.
Now we're going to
Yeah.
buy a house and a car. Am I going to have to do all the work?
Come
Okay.
on.
Okay.
So
That is
Dave and I were chatting about this, I think when did we go to Loyal? On Tuesday.
Yeah.
I made a comment and said something to the effect that he's not quite, this person is not quite on my level in terms of dates or going out.
Not quite. It's just understatement.
Read between the lines.
Give me I don't want to give the whole game away, yeah. And then Dave was like, I thought that wasn't important to you. Like money wasn't important. Because women say, money's not important or whatever. And then
That's such a biggest lie.
then he was, this is what he was saying.
Money's not important.
Then he got me kind of into a corner about like, is it important or not? Because previously I'd said about the person that is not the main aim for me. I don't really mind that. And I've got my own, thing going on. And then Dave was like, which is it? Is money important or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it's not that important, but it is important. And then it was like,
So think
I
about
had to question
in your
myself.
head that whole
Yeah.
juxtaposition already.
Yeah.
And so, am I expecting that my partner brings more of the bacon, or when I take days off for the kids, and when I run around and I do all the hospital bills and all the clothing, but you're only buying me nappies and you're paying our bond, and at the divorce court it becomes my bond.
Yeah.
Yes.
So money is rooted in most of divorce cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if we can try and have conversations, not at the first date, Dave, don't worry. Maybe not even at the 10th
No,
one.
but you know what?
But when that chemistry is there and we're going, actually, it's now an interaction. I'm now trading money to some extent, to some extent in this partnership. In this
So how many
friendship,
dates you reckon that conversation should be had?
man.
But I mean, there's
So there's no rocket science.
No,
I always say at the point of like, when you go half a dozen and a dozen, at the point when half a dozen goes towards a dozen.
Somewhere.
I know in your head you're going to mean, what do you mean?
Yeah,
There's no science to it.
But your
And-
platform itself will kind of filter through any any of that.
And it could be that you want to fix
No.
it up later before
No,
you
but you
end
know-
before you divorce.
But you know what? Okay, and I mean, we're sharing very personal stuff, but I suppose we could do a podcast. I find that within 10 minutes, if even shorter, so the conversations really know what's your status, what your assets, and your income. Okay, that's like right there on the thing. And what I normally do as a joke, I just like complete. If they don't know my profile, I just turn it completely the other way around and to see the reaction.
response. Yeah.
And it's always negative.
And
it's always negative.
Why do you play poor cousin? What are you saying?
No, I just create a story. I say no, like I'm unemployed and I'm not qualified. I don't know. And this, I'm
Are you
living at
listening to
home.
this,
I'm living at
Nathan?
home.
Oh, you,
and
do you do
this
that?
and then I see the response.
Okay, so what is the see the response bit? What will you say to see the response?
Just to see what the reaction is.
Are you expecting that reaction?
Yes.
Do I expect it adverse? Yes.
Okay. And so
And sorry,
it
but
probably is 90%, right?
100%. 100%. It's yeah.
And
100%.
And when we date financially, we get to understand the love language, but also the behavior, the patterning.
Yeah.
Remember, we also have an oppressive society, systematic, systemic.
Yeah. It's groomed you to be a certain way with money.
Absolutely. So you may want to flash. I use this example constantly. I've got a mathematician as a client, single dad, and he doesn't want to do a will. And I'm going, you've got to be serious. You know, Janine, we may be educated, but in our minds we still have Bantu education, quote unquote. And the reality of that is that that oppression is the learned behavior. That is the stuff where, you know, we can be educated and earn money, but we also want to stay in a certain mindset, in that oppressive, systemic, constantly not being forward thinking in what is right financially, the right pathway.
As in, I can own a property.
Owns 5
I don't
properties,
have to rent
for example.
forever.
Exactly. So it is mindset related as well. And so the last bit is really development of people in the industry.
Okay.
So I do practice development and mentorship for other advisors.
Okay.
And then with practice mentorship, it's really about trying to develop the practice as compliant as possible, best as advice as possible. I mean, we are so heavily legislated. We were on a CBD event today, and I shrill at the regulatory acts and the compliance, and you know, it goes from you need to be honest at all times. Yes, you need to do in most industries. You show up to your client, show compassion. If the client says, "Oh, but I'm paying you for this," don't be cheeky. And I'm going, you know, it's a human thing.
Yeah.
And so because money is such a massive thing that you're working with, you're only not working with the life of that person, you're working with the lives of that person.
Sure.
And so I love the development space, and there's where the teacher in me comes out.
So now, can we talk a little bit how you got involved in? Just explain how you involved with the budget process, the actual national
panel.
budget.
So with Momentum,
Okay.
they have budget heroes, and really people that are in most departments relating to how budget affects their business unit. So, for example, offshore investments, corporate investments, CSI, legal, etc. So I'm the financial planner hero, and really the bit about that is how does South African families relate to the budget, and how does it affect them? Because it filters down. Right?
Yes, yes.
And so as entrepreneurs, if we separated our personal and our business expenses, because we understand that actually business taxes are lower than the highest personal tax, and we want true governance, we want to not eat from the one coffers to feed the other coffers, we want to mitigate risks, we want to be able to be investable, we want to be fundable, we want to be saleable, investable, succession planning businesses. those really mean that as an entrepreneur, you need to understand budget for family, for your personal life, your personal circumstances, and your business.
Yeah.
And for example, the highlight this year was the solar grant,
which is a tax break now.
Absolutely.
For
So we're
corporate
going. We
use.
all are. I nearly saw with this electricity crisis, and it's affecting entrepreneurs because most people
in a
can't.
very profound way.
I mean,
Even the big guys.
profound is a nice word. You know, it's horrific. We have people who bake cakes for a living and they can't bake for half the day. So it's 5 cakes instead of 50 cakes to the coffee shop. Coffee shops, and so entrepreneurship is this thing about knowing what I can do and how I can use budget to my advantage.
Yes.
For example, tax deduction on retirement planning. Any entrepreneur I meet with has the lowest retirement planning.
What is the current percentage that you can actually claim?
27.5%.
Sorry, how much?
27.5%.
Of your income?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's quite high, eh?
It's massive, to a max of...
And it's a full tax write-off, against your
Yes,
income? Okay.
and to the max of 350K though per annum.
Oh, it's a
So if
cap.
you're earning
It's a
10 million,
cap.
you can only do 350K. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then is the very example that I continuously make. And I say, yes, I get that you don't want to spend more, but retirement is not spending. Retirement is investing.
Yeah.
You know,
So you're investing in you and your livelihood in your old age.
but I mean, it's quite a easy exercise because do you rather want to give the money to the state or do you want to give money to yourself for the future?
Again,
I
a
mean, that
mentality
is the actual
Yeah.
And
question.
then, again, a mentality thing. And then you start doing calcs and you go, okay, so on that income at this contribution, there's the reduction.
Yes.
If you up the income, you actually get more back of the contribution.
Yes.
Oh my, up to
Yes.
40% back.
So,
So it's almost a
wow.
no-brainer,
Yeah.
It's a
right?
no-brainer.
But
yeah.
there's this knowledge that not everybody has access to in terms of, yes, the budget speech was made, but how does it impact me? So you're very involved in communicating that to
Consumer communication,
entrepreneurs.
yeah,
and
absolutely. So very much
Okay.
consumer education, I guess. And so if anything, any theme, any concept, I often write pieces as well for media. And it ranges from, I think I did a supply and demand on Business Live in the month of love around flowers.
Okay.
So, anything that relates to, I guess, how money impacts in any theme in any month. January, I did, how can you avoid January? It's too late because you're already there.
Yeah,
darling.
already passed. Yeah. Now tell me, things coming out of the budget speech. Okay, did the tax thresholds change?
So there's a 4.9% tax bracket creep.
A creep. Okay.
The over 65s have a higher threshold, I think from 91K to 95K. And then on retirement, the 1/3 tax lump sum was raised from 500,000 to 550,000.
Okay.
So yes, it's 50K,
So
but
some
at least there's an
benefits,
indication.
yeah.
And I don't know, Dave, if you know of the 2-pot system, which is basically government saying, actually, this thing about taking 100% of your pension and provident fund out during your working lifetime has to stop.
Oh, so because you would be taxed if you take it out.
Absolutely, 22,500 tax-free only, the rest is tax. So when people get retrenched, the horror stories of actually wanting to resign to get the money, then hustle for a new job just because I want that little money.
Yes.
And so in any one person's lifetime, he's withdrawn a pension fund, withdrawn a provident fund. And so the 2-pot system, which was a big discussion around this budget speech, which comes into effect March 2024, speaks of a line in the sand. And so going forward,
cut it out
that
completely.
100% access is no longer available. What has vested, obviously you can't make rules reactively, so what has vested remains as is, but the line in the sand now creates a 2-pot system. One that you cannot touch at all, which is obviously the larger amount. And during COVID, there was an outcry for access to cash.
Access to cash,
and so the other pot is creating a bit of a cash access emergency fund. Very small amount, very small percentage.
Non-taxable.
Yes. Look, your tax-free threshold for withdrawal is still 22,500.
But if you draw it out, you don't pay tax on your draw.
No, only the first 22,500 is tax-free.
Okay.
So it is heavily taxed. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
it's
it's
heavily
benefit.
taxed.
Yeah.
And you know how many people go, I don't mind the tax, I just want the 100K. And then
And I paid it, and it's
40,000 tax down the drain.
because it gets lumped to your income, so it's a super bracket that you actually not pay.
No, it's just on the withdrawal, actually.
It's just on the withdrawal, it's not lumped.
Completely separate.
So the problem I have with South African regulators is implementation and actually kind of making sure that it happens. So how do you regulate someone, for example, who has a pension fund, a retirement fund, and decides to become an entrepreneur at 30?
Yeah.
You know, it's not always about wanting to access the money. There are natural circumstances. Sometimes companies close down. And people are going to need the money.
It's an absolute fine line. So the reality is we all know less than 6% of South Africans can retire. We also know that we are a staggering population of unemployment. We also
and debt
know that
as well.
We are over-indebted society. And we also know that coupled with the large population, only 20% of our population are contributing to the coffers. Right?
I thought it was even lower than that. It's so it's 20%.
At least, you know,
of the workforce.
Absolutely, that contributes to your tax coffers.
To tax coffers, yeah.
So when you can get deductions and leeway, look, there's no way around the rules. As soon as you trigger something at your employer, we have to follow the Pension Funds Act, and we have to follow.
Yeah.
The one place that works well in South Africa is SARS. Come now, guys.
Oh, really? Oh, my word. Okay.
So there's no 2 cents going past those guys, right? So compliance obviously is key, but there are those situations where it becomes dire, and that was the outcry during COVID, hence the two-part system. Many were retrenched, and many withdrew what they needed to stay alive. And so it's the discernment. Yeah. And at 30, yes, because maybe you still have another 40 years. We're living longer, we're working longer. But at 45, no.
Do you think that the policy makers are going to become clever and incorporate sort of clauses where you can opt? Or?
So in this two-part system, it's quite intense. It's a very big It's a document. It speaks of those rules. As I said, whatever's vested up until March 2024 follows the old rules, and then the new system applies.
So don't you think there's going to be a big jumping of ship before March?
Possibly.
I can see that happening.
Possibly. There's already been quite a lot of movement.
Yeah, and that just depletes the cash coffers, which causes another...
And that's why financial plan is important.
So now you've got 500 clients.
Yes.
Can I ask a more general question about the clients, because you're in touch with the clients on a regular basis. Yeah. What's the mood? What's the general mood?
So, you know, some clients say, I want to talk to you every year about everything, every few months, and you kind of just feel the same question and you hold that compassion space. Sometimes there's the bit about, you know, we send out reviews and we get no answer, and we go, if you are satisfied with this, please confirm. And you get the notion that it's an ostrich with the head in the sand syndrome. Can I just hide here for a bit because it feels intense? Because I have more month than money. I'm over indebted, and that's where the financial education come in. What are your rights? You know, how to possibly get
instead
out of
just shutting down and avoiding it.
Yeah, I say, you know, speak to the creditor.
Yeah.
He's not going to go away. Yeah. We know with NCR we've got rights.
Yes.
So over-indebted society is obviously a big thing. And pre-budget speech, we were talking about hoping that the president would clamp down to some effect on the exorbitant debt, the access to debt.
Access to debt. Well, that's been a conversation for years, and it gets clamped down. Yeah. But then slowly gets relaxed. And this is by the major banks, by the way. You know, and you can see it.
Yeah, they'd be out of business if there was a clampdown on access to debt.
Well, you know what? I belong to the Clear Score thing, where they send every month, this is your score. Yeah. And I get bombarded all the time with these offers, credit cards, loans, etc., etc. Now, if you don't, I personally don't believe in credit at all. Not at all on anything. If I can't buy a car cash, I'm not going to. And I know it's not very tax efficient, but it's just a peace of mind that I prefer to have. But you get bombarded all the time with these things.
Constantly.
I just cannot believe it. Congratulations, your credit score has gone up. You can have boom, 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 boom. Now, if you don't know
So
how
I just unsubscribe and block. I
Unsubscribe.
unsubscribe and block.
Yeah.
Because it does mess with your head.
Yeah.
And that's the last
It's
thing you
almost too
need when you're on a
easy.
path. You know, when you're finding your journey and you're on this path,
Yes.
you don't want the obstacles. I mean, just give me a smooth ride here.
Yeah,
You know, make it a tar road, please, not a rocky one.
Do you
know?
tell your clients, what is your attitude towards credit?
So you have to weigh up the cost of credit.
Okay.
That's the first one.
Okay.
Secondly, savings should be compulsory.
Okay.
We saw with COVID very little emergency savings.
Okay.
And so savings needs to be in budget.
Okay.
Food, bread, electricity, fuel, car, savings.
Okay.
Right? Short, medium term, long, emergency. Obviously, we all know the definition of emergency, unknown time, unknown event. So the new outfit for the new event is not an emergency.
No, it's not.
And so that wants versus needs also become a
So
contentious subject.
you are in that very intimate space of the entrepreneur's decision making.
Totally.
You're the voice going,
Totally.
no, it's not necessary.
Totally.
Do they listen
And
to you?
that soundboard is important.
Yeah.
And I could, you know, Dave, you go, here's the evidence of my advice.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this is best advice
Yeah.
for all of us as financial advisors. You have the choice. And
Do
if
they
you-
listen to you?
Not, you know, it's a combination, really.
Okay.
You know, but they value the input.
Okay.
90% value.
So
the
they're
input.
informed when they make
They
a decision.
value the input, yeah.
Okay.
And I've had people go, thank you so much for that. I now understand better. You know, in financial literacy, we do a typical example of saying, you now have been accepted for a new job and you need a laptop. And so buy this now for $250 a month over 5 years versus 2,500 cash. And if we just do that
And there's that
very
cost of the credit,
simplified
yeah.
number,
Yes.
what's the cost of the credit? It's 3 times the
Yes.
initial price.
Correct.
Yes.
Then we go, okay, what are you doing right now with the money? Let's calculate this. Oh, well, every month or every week there's this spend and KFC that, and I'm just making a very mediocre example. And so then you go, let's look at it. Can you maybe do this once a month only?
Yes.
Because I'm not dictating. We're not dictating.
Because
Can
the-
you?
yeah.
Can you
You're
see?
suggesting, yeah.
And then we go, well, that 500 Rand now becomes only 5 months. Then you've got your money for your
Yeah.
laptop.
So it's a whole lifestyle
Exactly.
kind of change
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What I wanted to ask you, I know you said this morning you were coming from Joburg and you were on the red eye. What are some of the highlights of your career, if we can just kind of touch on that?
Yeah, there's been many, you know, from awards to trips to, and so that legislation has changed, Evelyn. I think we were going, oh.
What, like gifts or gifting?
So you'd get rewarded with a trip away, gift away.
Yeah, to some island somewhere.
Yeah. Didn't quite get to the island one, but yeah, something similar. And, you know, I've met some amazing people. I was going to join a partnership again and went right to the top to get funding. And through that, so many other doors were opened. And so that intervention, that divine intervention, that universal pull towards this behavioral flexibility that I feel we all should have as entrepreneurs has allowed me to go into spaces that maybe 20 years, 10 years ago, you know, I didn't know about them.
Yeah.
But I kicked those doors down.
Lovely.
And you know, meeting some great people, it means that you build your network.
Yes.
That's how we met, right?
Networking, yeah.
And it's a network that you can always count
Absolutely.
on.
And the future? What does the future hold for
So
Janine?
I cannot do it all, Dave. So the future is that I now need to man up and get more staff.
Okay.
I'd love to have other financial literacy ongoing, but a couple across corporate and youth. I've got the illustrations to my kiddies book.
Kiddies
Wow,
book way
you're
back
publishing.
up.
Does
publishing.
money go on trees?
Yeah.
And it's the concept of saving and growing your money.
I love that though, that you're
that's
bringing the
fantastic.
youth into financial education.
What's
I'm
it
trying
called?
to
What's the book called?
Does money grow on trees?
Each child in South Africa should have one.
Because mommy says money grows on trees on my back. Does it grow on trees?
Is the book ready for publishing?
No, not. So I've got the illustrations done. We need to go to editing and copyright and all of those things.
What's your timeline on that?
I'm hoping to launch for Christmas this year.
Nice.
Well,
Please keep
I'm
us
also
posted.
releasing a book, and
Nice.
I'll recommend you a publisher. It's
Nice.
amazing.
Awesome stuff.
I don't know if you heard of Lesedi Publishing.
I have.
Okay,
I have.
They
That's the next step.
So on the ball.
So my nephew is an animator.
Okay.
And it was a beautiful creative process. And the storyline is about planting the seed, the plant, and how that becomes a shrub and a flower and then a tree with fruit. And that's the same with money.
But I think, Dave, it's inevitable as an entrepreneur to stay in one space. You do inevitably, either vertically or horizontally, you integrate yourself, you know. So I love that you're bringing in the youth. You've got the dating vibe going.
I'm so interested to find out more about
Are you going to be my first test case?
No.
Let's pilot Dave.
Okay, but now we're going to have to...
Let's pilot Dave.
And how do people get hold of you? I mean, you're an amazing, diverse person. It's not just about financial management or one space.
Yeah.
You're like, and it seems to me you've got a lid on everything, and that's got to do with balance, right?
It absolutely is, and I'm sticking to my nuts, and my nuts are finances. My nuts are about money.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
your
at
that's
kiddie
your
level,
strong point.
At kiddie level, at youth level, at graduate, at youth, at entrepreneurs, at new entrants into market, and then obviously the established family man and businessman. So where to get me? My Instagram handle, Conversations at Janine. My Facebook page, Money Matters with Janine. And website www.janine.horn.co.za.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
I love it. What's the rest of your day like? We're almost done. I know you're going to run.
So I'm running for the 3:30. So I try and balance my time, talk about balance. In my household, we've had a team talk pre-COVID.
Family meeting.
So each one takes turn with supper, including the 18-year-old young man. And so my night is tonight. Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays are my days.
And
so
no
I get a longer day.
shortcuts. No shortcuts. No Mr. D.
So I can work late Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So on wrapping up, are you hopeful for the future of our country? You feel optimistic?
So like you, I'm very patriotic. I am desperate for a change in the dynamic.
Okay.
Obviously, the corruption makes any conversation with any member of the public hard because, people want to run. We've lost a lot of professionals during COVID to immigrating. And so I have hope. It wanes a little bit sometimes, but I have hope. It's a massive impact to dent the youth unemployment. And just last night at our gala dinner, we were speaking, myself and our CEO was speaking about the youth that are coming from flats and townships and bringing them into this corporate, complete different world. There's stuff missing.
They need support.
And so that's the bit that I'm trying to do. So I do a lot of development of the person, life skills, the bit about workplace readiness. Some interns have come through my hands, and then the college goes, no, they've had workplace readiness, and then come at my workplace, and I go, there's no readiness.
Not so much.
So the future for me is really getting automated businesses, a lot of more digital buying programs online, and then so that creates its own stream of income, supporting the business, so growing the business through support, and I'm trying to find a mirror image of me. Please play along with me.
Well, you never know who's watching and who's inspired today.
Absolutely.
They might be knocking on your Instagram or something shortly.
Absolutely.
Well, on that beautiful, optimistic note,
thanks for having me.
we have to wrap it up because you've got a meeting. You told us we would love to chat more with you.
Yes.
Such an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for joining
Thanks
us.
for
So we bid you farewell.
Yes.
Nantal has been a rock star again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nantal.
So I say goodbye from myself.
And Sam.
And Janine.
Okay, cheers, bye.
Bye-bye.
See you next
Bye.
week. Bye-bye.
Bye.